This is Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow, expansions.com, here with another podcast of Cooking with Janet. Hopefully all of you who are watching this are subscribers to our free e-newsletter, which you can get on our site. And in the last e-newsletter, I mentioned that we are going to be discussing Sunbutter. And beyond that, I want to talk to you about sweetness in life, because I know a lot of you label or put sweetness in with guilt, or I shouldn't have this and I shouldn't have that, and if you do eat it you feel guilty, you feel bad. Well, life is supposed to have some sweetness in it, and any carbohydrate really turns into sugar into your body, so carbohydrates really equal sweetness. The issue becomes when that you have empty spots within yourself that are emotionally empty, bereft, disappointed, upset, stressed. What you do is you start shoveling in, because if the mind isn't taking care of it for you, you figure, well, if I put enough junk into my body, if I put enough sugar in my body, if I put enough sweetness in my body, it's going to change things in the outer world. Not exactly, because the mind always goes first. But I want you to understand that it is okay to have sweetness in your life, and what usually puts on the weight and everything else is the bad feelings that you ingest when you eat anything sweet. And if you look on the internet, there are things like guilty pleasure, sinful chocolate, those kind of things. You want to stop and realize that what you put in your mind represents what is going into your body, and vice versa. So when you eat sweet things of any kind, then you want to be sure and ask that it be blessed on the oversoul level, and take in only what you need. Because if you take in more, then you're going to put on weight, you're going to use it for isolation and everything else. And this is the holiday season when everything is out there for you to choose from. Most of it is not really good for you, nutritious. So what I want to do is I want to show you some things that you can make very simply, very easily, whether you're one person or two or many, because a lot of these things you can put into your freezer. And this will help to nurture the part of you that does need sweet experiences, because this is life. It doesn't always turn out the way that you think it's going to be. It may be more challenging, but it doesn't mean that you can't enjoy the ups and downs and the fiber of the fabric that you're weaving with your thoughts, your mind, your emotion, your life. So with that said, I'd like to invite you to take a look over here at a couple of things before we get into our Sunbutter Fest. The first thing I want to show you is my stevia. Now, I do use a lot of stevia, and this is a 1 ounce now, which is my favorite brand. There are a lot of kinds out there. Stevia is an herb that is grown in South America, is banned as a sweetener by in the U.S. and in some other countries as well. And the reason is because of the sugar lobby. The sugar lobby actually has fought against allowing this to be labeled as a sweetener. So usually you find it in food supplements, even though of course it's known to be a sweetener. Now this little bottle usually runs somewhere between $8 to $10. So what I do is I buy this little bottle because it's got a really nice little scoop and it's got ways to pour it out. But this is really what you want to have in your cupboard if you can do it. This is 1 pound of stevia. This runs about $60 to $65, and I got this from Vitacost.com, free shipping and handling on any orders over $49. And if you take a look at this 1 ounce one, if you're going to pay, let's say $10, and there's 16 ounces in a pound, and you buy 10 of these, you've spent $160. If you buy one of these, you've spent about $60. So you're saving, easily calculable, because my brace is in my way, is approximately $100. So if you can do the bigger one, if you have a friend, if you can't do it, try and save up and get one of these Vitacost.com 1 pound of stevia, and that's going to save you about $100. So keep that in mind. This, of course, you've seen this before. These are the coconut crystals that I use. Low glycemic sugar index. It's organic, gluten-free, unbleached, unrefined, GMO-free, and it's very user-friendly. Only 7 carbs per tablespoon versus most sweeteners are about twice that. Now, we do need carbs in our diet, as I've told you before, and I have people writing in saying, well, you need carbs. The issue is that we eat too many carbs and we're stressing out our systems. And so that's one of the reasons why we want to do low carb. If you are a diabetic type 2, then of course you want to pull back on your carbs as much as you can. And the more times that you can use the stevia for sweetener, which balances the blood sugar, the better off that you are. In all of my recipes, I have cut the sugar way back, and you can do what you need to do for your particular diet. Do not use the Splendas and all those other kind of things. Xylitol I don't like, erythritol I don't like, wood alcohol based, I don't like those. You have to do what's correct for you, but these are my suggestions. I would rather use some of these sweeteners, which I know are better for you, than some of those other ones, and have less and have something that's better in your body. The other thing I want to talk to you about just briefly is making homemade cranberry sauce. And I want to show you mine. Mine is already made. We're not going to actually do this today, but I want you to see how easy it is. This is not what you're going to find in a can. You can see I make mine with whole berries. You can find these usually in your supermarket. I was lucky I found organic ones. And all you have to do, each carton is approximately 8 ounces. It doesn't have to be specifically that amount, but somewhere in there. Remember, I told you, you can play with things. What I do is I take 1 cup of distilled water and I mix in 1/2 cup of maple syrup. Now you can do something different. You can also use the coconut crystals. I happen to like the flavor of maple syrup. It is a little bit more high carb. Cranberries are low carb, but I don't use a lot of the maple syrup, so really per tablespoon it's very, very low. You just take 1 cup of steamed distilled water, 1/2 cup of your choice of sweetener. You boil that. When it comes to a boil, after you've washed your cranberries and picked out any that maybe don't look good, you put them in your pan and you boil it for about 10 minutes. That's it. Then you put it into the bowl, and it's going to be very liquidy. You put it into your refrigerator and it's going to sit, and it's going to, depending upon your sugar. Now if you put more sugar in, it's going to get a little thicker than this. I don't put so much, so it is a little bit thinner. This is good on your rolls, your bread, your turkey. You can mix it in with yogurt. Now, there are a lot of things that you can do. So if you like cranberries, rather than buying the can, do your best to find your whole cranberries and make your own, and it's really very delicious. If you don't like the whole berries, but I think you're going to if you've not had this before, you can always run it through a strainer or a blender. There are a lot of things you can do through cheesecloth, but I like the whole berries because that's where you're going to find your nutrition. So anyway, just a kind of a little side, kind of a fun thing for you to do. When you do your cranberry sauce, I did mention that each box is approximately 8 ounces. For the recipe I just gave you, you'll want to use approximately twice that. But if you wind up with, instead of 16 ounces, if you only have 14 ounces, don't worry about it. Just adjust. Your recipe is not going to be the same every single time, because remember, your mind pattern is changing, the food that you get is changing, and it's homemade. You're not getting it from a factory. It's not factory produced. So I'm not really concerned how my food turns out, as long as basically it's good. And that's really what you want to be concerned with, is basically you want a good recipe, and basically it's okay if it's not perfectly the way that you envision it in your mind, because it's going to be perfect for your body. Okay, with that, we're going to go into our Sunbutter Fest. Now the Sunbutter I have talked to you about a little bit before. I mentioned that Stewart really likes this mixed in with his yogurt. This is organic. It's very low carb. 2 tablespoons only have 5 carbs. And when you cook with this, most people cannot tell the difference between this and peanut butter. I like peanut butter a lot, but it's very moldy as a general rule, because remember, peanuts are not really nuts, they are a legume. They grow in a shell, they grow under the ground. There's a lot of mold generally in that shell, unless you know your source. So if you know your source, you know it's mold-free, then go ahead with your peanut butter. But if you're not particularly sure, the Sunbutter is a really great alternative, which is much lower in carbs as well. And it again is not a nut, it's a seed. If you have liver issues, you might want to again hold back on it, but a little here and there is okay. I'm going to actually show you 3 different recipes that are relatively nutritious, that they're sweet, and they're fun to eat. They're easy to do. You can again put them in the freezer for yourself if there's only one person, cook them for a crowd, take them to your office if you need something. The ingredients are easy to have on hand, so it's very simple. And I'm going to start by showing you how to make flourless Sunbutter cookies or peanut butter cookies. This happens to be 1 cup of Sunbutter and 3/4 of a cup of the coconut sugar. I'm going to put in there 1 teaspoon of aluminum-free baking soda. That goes in. And 1 egg. And that's it. And you just mix that together. I've had my oven preheating. You might be able to hear the fan running in the background a little bit because I want to show you how wonderfully these bake. You can double your recipe. Again, you can adjust your sugars. You can add in nuts to here. You can add in chocolate chips. You can frost them with chocolate when you're done. You know, your imagination, again, when you cook, it's a creative activity. It's really about what you're putting into your mind. And I think about that when I do my cooking. I also think about who's going to be eating it and what their particular body structures, physical structures need, and I ask my oversoul, what should I be making, for whom, and how to do it. And some days I may not do the same recipe twice because it's for different people or it's a different set of mental attributes that are active that day. So even though it might be called the same thing, I might decide to do something different to it. So think about that. A lot of people stress over cooking, and it shouldn't be a stressful activity. It's a creative activity. It should make you feel good that you are creating. You're putting together ingredients just like you're putting together thoughts in your mind to create things. All right, you see how nice and stiff that works up. And I'm going to get my cookie sheet here. I'm not going to grease it. And the whole recipe, remember, it has a cup of Sunbutter. That's about 40 carbs. It's got 3/4 of a cup of my coconut crystals. So that's about 85 carbs. So the whole recipe here really has roughly around 200 carbs. So it depends on how many cookies you make as far as what your carb count actually is per cookie. And you know, if you're going to an office party and people are going to have a bite of this and a bite of that, you don't want to make giant cookies. They're fun, yes, but people are going to start breaking them apart, and you don't want to do that. So let's see what we have here. You can see it's a really nice dough, and if I told you there was flour in this, you would believe me because it holds together really nicely. Actually, I'm just going in my head, 85 carbs for the sugar and 40 carbs for the Sunbutter. Really, we're only talking about 125 carbs in the whole recipe. So if all you got was 10 cookies, you would only be talking about 12 carbs per cookie. And as you can see, we're going to get more than that off of this recipe. I'm going to try and get all of this on one cookie sheet, so I only have to watch my oven one time. Let's just put in another row. These are not going to spread out a lot. If you watched my almond lace cookies last week, you know that those things are going to spread out. They're designed to do that. This is designed to hold its form as a cookie would. I'm going to try and make them as even as possible, so that they all bake evenly. But again, I'm not going to be upset one way or the other, because the idea is to enjoy the experience, and all the energy that goes into your food is going to be ingested on some kind of a level. So again, you can also ask your oversoul to clean up and bless your food so that it nourishes you. This isn't about putting on weight and feeling guilty. It's about, wow, I'm making something sweet for myself. You know, I deserve this. I've worked hard. Okay, so into the oven they go at 350. We're going to cook them about 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and set the timer for 8 because I want to watch them and not overbake them. But again, that's personal preference. Some people like them more crispy, and people like them more done. I'm going to set that bowl aside. And while those are baking, the next interesting thing I'm going to show you is a recipe that I've kind of, again, fooled with to make it work for us. These are going to be peanut butter cups, of course, made with Sunbutter. So, it calls for powdered sugar. Now, powdered sugar is really difficult to find in anything other than white sugar, but you can make your own, believe it or not. And that's what I'm going to show you how to do. In this recipe, I have 1 cup, again, I'm using the coconut crystals. I put 1 cup in the bowl, and I mix it with 1.5 tablespoons of arrowroot flour. You can also use cornstarch if you don't have this, but I prefer to stay away from the corn when I can. So I did a little bit in advance because I wanted to see how it worked up. I did it once before in my blender, and it was a bit of a challenge, but you can do it. I did it in my food processor, and it did not work up as nicely. And I have a little coffee grinder. It worked up a little bit nicer. So I'm going to take this off. I have some in there already. I'm going to show you how fast that works up. So this is your plain sugar with the arrowroot powder. And just turn it on for a few seconds. Okay, now when I open it up, you're going to watch and see that it's going to be kind of fly. You see all the powder that came up out of there? Okay. What it does is it breaks it up and it also dries it out, and that's one thing about adding your arrowroot powder or your cornstarch. It helps to pick up any of the moisture that's in your sugar. And then when you mix it with something like we're going to do the Sunbutter, which is a little bit wet, it helps to soak up, absorb the moisture. So here we go again. So it's very easy to make your own powdered sugar if you need a recipe that calls for it. Okay, so this is just 1 cup of the coconut crystals with 1.5 tablespoons of the arrowroot powder turned into powdered sugar versus, I just wanted to remind you what it looks like in the can. Okay, it's a lot denser and coarser, and it's got a little bit of moisture in there, and that's why it sticks together. Okay, so get these out of the way as we progress. So I have in here 1 cup of the powdered sugar. I am going to add to that 1/2 cup of Sunbutter. And this is my goat butter that I've already melted. This is 1/4 cup, or the equivalent of 1 stick for those here in the US. That's going in. And the secret ingredient is next. That is, believe it or not, graham crackers. These are gluten-free. This is the brand that I like. I use about 10 crackers. I put them in a bag, and I use my rolling pin. Now, if you don't have a rolling pin, if you've got a flat bottom pot, that will work. Don't stress, don't make things difficult for yourself. But we want to create fine crumbs because this is also going to absorb moisture. It's going to give your peanut butter cups or Sunbutter cups a really nice texture. And again, if you don't tell people what's in there, they're never going to guess that this is your secret ingredient. And see how nice the rolling pin does. Get these really nice and fine. Okay, so you can see how nice and fine these look. Now, if you want to try this in your food processor, I have not done that yet, but you may know better than I, because I haven't had a food processor that long. I've mostly had a rolling pin. So let me know if that works for you. Okay, here we go. So, and this, of course, is easy cleanup. You don't have to wash a food processor. It's nice. Just throw out your bag. Okay, so that's all you need, and you mix everything up, and you're going to get a relatively stiff type of dough, or fondant. So this is going to be the base for your peanut butter cups. Now, you can do these when you actually put them together in a variety of ways. You can get the little candy wrappers, and on the bottom you can melt some chocolate and put that in the bottom. Put this in the middle as a filler, and then put some more chocolate on the top. You can do that, and that's really nice if you're, again, going to go to an office party or you're having guests over. It's really a nice way to present this. This is going to soak up the ingredients. It's a little wet now, but this will change. And if you're concerned, you can always add more of the sugar. You can add more of the crumbs, but that will eventually take care of it. Now what I like to do, because it's easy, is I'm just going to put mine in a little 8x8 pan baking dish. And press it out. And this is very easily refrigerated. You can go in the freezer either before or after. And that's your base. And then for the top, you remember I had already melted a little bit of butter. I'm going to turn this back on. I do use a little bit of organic heavy whipping cream from time to time, so it gets a little stained. I'm just going to put enough in here to melt my chocolate. A couple tablespoons. To warm it up, I went ahead and chopped my chocolate up. Remember, I like the Green and Black's organic 85% dark chocolate bars. Now these, the prices have gone up since I purchased this, $3.99. They're all now up to $4.59. And they were just on sale back again for $3.19. So I bought a box of 10, and I saved $11.50 by buying a box at the current price. So keep those things in mind. There's my timer for the peanut butter cookies. So let's set that aside and see how these cookies are doing. Oh, very nice. Okay, you can see coming along, they're still a little soft, so I'm going to put them in for another couple of minutes. They're beautiful. You would never guess that they are flourless. Okay, let's go back over here. I'm going to grab a spoon. Stir this chocolate. Melt that. Now last time I used a whole bar, my family said that it was too much chocolate, if you can believe that. So I cut this down to half a bar, which may not be enough. I may have to stick another half in there, and if I don't put it all on top, I'll save it for another use. Now you can see this is melting up really nicely, and again, I'm experimenting. There's still some little chunks in there. You can leave the chunks if you want it a little chunky on top, or you can just continue to stir until your chunks are gone. There is no right or wrong, as long as you keep that in mind with your cooking. It's how you like it. I'm going to leave it. This will set up. I'm going to put this in my refrigerator when I'm done. But this is the top for my peanut butter cups. Spread that out. As I said, I did twice as much the last time, and everybody said, oh, it's too much chocolate on top. I said, okay. This is going to make about, I will cut this, say, 4 by 4. It'll make about 16 pieces. Each piece will have approximately 15 carbs, and it's relatively nutritious. You have your Sunbutter in there. You have goat butter, which isn't bad for you. You have the gluten-free crackers, and it's really a very nice recipe. And as I said, it's going to go into my refrigerator to help it set up. If you want, you can put it into your freezer. If you're going to do your freezer, I'm going to suggest that you cut it first, because it will get very hard, and then it's going to be hard to take out, or you'll have to unthaw it. Refrigerate it after it's set. Cut it into your 16 pieces, or differently if you prefer, and then you can freeze individual pieces in your freezer. So just wipe that down. But anyway, so there's your homemade peanut butter cups. Very nice recipe, very simple, easy to take. Ingredients are easy to have on hand. So let me set this aside. All right, here we go. Those are looking better. Now, looks like I squished one with my pop holder. See what the bottom looks like. Okay, that's browned nicely, so I'm just going to set it over here. I usually put mine on paper towels. Some people like a cooling rack, parchment paper, whatever suits you. And again, you can put nuts in these. You can, notice how gently I'm taking them off. You can put a dollop of chocolate on the top. A lot of people like different things with their peanut butter. Think of it as like a peanut butter cookie, and what you would do they're really nice. And of course, the longer they sit on your cookie sheet, remember they continue baking. So if you like the way that they look, you want to take them off quickly. If you want them to bake just a little bit longer, leave them sit a little bit longer. But if you let them sit too long and they get cold, sometimes they're hard to take off your cookie sheet. And then you're going to have crumbs. So a lot of it is by trial and error. Don't be hard on yourself. If you wind up with crumbs, you know what? It'd be delicious cooked, crumbled up over vanilla ice cream. So you can always find something to do with whatever it is you've done. There's a reason. Figure it out. Okay, I'm going to set my cookie sheet aside and prepare for the last thing I'm going to show you. Okay. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is a Sunbutter cheesecake. You can use a lot of different things for your cheese depending upon what's available to you and what you want to use. This particular recipe takes 4 8-ounce packages of cream cheese. You can also use fresh goat cheese if you want to do it with goat. And what I have done for something different is I have taken, you remember I've shown you this before, that my sheep's milk plain yogurt, and it's very soft. So what I have done is I have strained it. Okay, I've taken 2 containers and a little bit more. I use my cheesecloth and I have strained it to take out the whey, which I've already dumped. And so basically I need 2 pounds of fresh cheese of some kind. So I've made my own 2 pounds. You can make your own. Or you can use what's already done. You can also get goat cream cheese that's already taken care of for you. So this is going to go in along with 2 cups of Sunbutter. Okay, so we have in here 2 cups of Sunbutter, and I have basically 2 pounds of fresh cheese. Do whatever works for you. I have 1 cup of the coconut sugar crystals. I've also made this very successfully with maple syrup. So this is going to go in, but this is less carbs, so this is what I'm going to go with. It also takes 1 teaspoon of vanilla, and I have here 4 tablespoons of Perfect Flour Blend, which is a soy-free, and it's corn-free, wheat-free, gluten-free flour that I use in some of my baking, but not all. I can't say it's the best in the world, but it works for now. So this is going to go in here as well, and I'm going to start just by mixing it up. I am going to move to my mixer in just a minute, my hand mixer. But I want you to see how nicely that this comes together. Cheesecake is really very easy to make. It was something that I had to learn to do. I was a little bit afraid of it. I only knew how to buy something real expensive, and I always wondered about how I could do it myself, but I make a lot of them. I do plain, which instead of the Sunbutter, I would use more fresh cheese, or you can use sour cream. Then you also would use a little bit of lemon juice if you want, and you could serve it with blueberries or strawberries. It's delicious. I also make mine, I've made it with pumpkin, so instead of the Sunbutter, again, you would be using your pumpkin. Of course, I make my own pumpkin, as you've seen before. So there's a lot of different things that you can do. You can also put chocolate right into here if you want. We're going to use it, I'm going to put my chocolate on the top. But you can see how nice that batter works up. It's really beautiful. And a teaspoon of vanilla, and I'm just going to throw mine in there because that's what I do. You can measure yours out if you want. And the last thing that goes in there is eggs, and that's it. And for that I'm going to use my mixer. This particular recipe that I use takes 4 to 5 eggs. I have put 5 eggs in my bowl already, so that's going to go in. And the reason I'm going to use my mixer is because it's going to make it smoother and creamier at this point. So let's just go ahead and take this out of there. Put it on low for you. want to overbeat cheesecake, because if you do, it's going to be full of air pockets and won't bake up quite as nicely. But if that happens to you, that's okay. It's what it's meant to be. Let it be. You could mix in a little jam or jelly, fruit nectar, slices of fruit like peanut butter and jelly type sandwich. I do mine again without a crust on the bottom, but you can also put a crust on yours very easily. You can do graham crackers like I showed you before, the gluten-free. You can choose any kind of gluten-free cookies that you want. You could do a nut butter crust, or ground nuts, not really nut butter, but you take your fresh nuts, grind them up in your grinder, mix them with a little butter, a little sweetener if you want, press it into the bottom. Gives you an interesting crust that you can work with. Okay, now I also want to show you my cheesecake pan, in case you've not ever used one before. This is a springform pan. It has a bottom, it has a side. You open this up, and all you do is you just set the bottom in, and then you close your hook this way, okay? And that's what allows you to take your cheesecake out easily once it's cooled. I always bake my cheesecake on some kind of a cookie sheet. Clean this up from our Sunbutter cookies. And the reason is because in case it leaks, you don't have a mess in your oven. So, cookie sheet over here. And you can see I don't have a lot of fancy equipment. I don't have a lot of fancy bowls and pots. I just kind of take what I've got and I utilize it. You don't need anything fancy to do your cooking. Okay, that goes on your cookie sheet, and just in case it should leak out the bottom. Again, I don't have a crust in here. You may want one. Beautiful batter, very simple to do. My oven is heating at 425. I'm going to bake it at 425 for about 15 minutes. When my 15 minutes are over, I am not going to open my oven and check on it. I am going to turn my oven down to 300, and then it's going to bake for an additional 45 minutes. When that is done, my oven goes off. I do not crack my door. Some people do, but I continue to leave it sit. And as it cools and bakes a little bit, it helps keep it from cracking and falling apart. So you do want to have a little bit of time. Oftentimes, if I'm going to have a cheesecake for dinner, I'll make it the day before. Usually I like my things fresh, but cheesecakes I usually do the day before. So you can see what a lovely batter this is. It will rise up and it's going to look really nice, and then it may fall down a little bit. That's okay. And when it's done, I'm going to put the same thing on top of this that you saw me put on top of the peanut butter cups. I'm just going to melt a little bit of cream with a little bit of chocolate and put that on top. But again, you can, besides the jams and jellies, you can put that on as well. You can put in chocolate chips. You can also do that and then swirl it in through here. It depends on what you want to do. You know, again, use your creative powers. Use what's fun. And again, it's relatively nutritious. And here I have the yogurt, I have Sunbutter, I have eggs. You can eat this for breakfast. A little bit of sugar, that's okay. No guilt involved. It's all about having fun, putting sweetness in your life, enjoying what you do. So with that, I'm going to leave you. I hope that you will try these desserts. I hope that you will write in on the forums and let us know your results, because it's always fun to hear what you're doing, or if you've done something different, put it out there for other people to read about. This is about coming together, removing isolation programming, doing things together to enhance our health, body, mind, and soul in every way that we can. Because as we change ourselves, as we feed our bodies, as we feed our minds differently, as we upgrade and uplift, that's what happens to the world in turn. We appreciate each and every one of you. I give thanks for you every day that you exist. It allows Stewart and I to do the work that we love in a way that we love. Thank you for supporting us. We appreciate those of you who can purchase memberships, because that helps pay our team. That helps pay our server fees, our bandwidth fees, and all the other behind-the-scenes things that are going on right now, because expansions.com is continuing to expand so we can continue to bring you the best. So thank you very much for joining me, Janet Diane Mourglia-Swerdlow, expansions.com.